Isabella Matczak. I'm a first-year English, Rhetoric of Science, Technology, and Culture major with minor in journalism here at UW-Eau Claire. It's kind of a mouthful to say, but basically my English emphasis focuses on producing professional, scientific, and technical texts, grant proposal writing, editing, and managing publications, and much more. Traditionally, writing and editing were mainly human-occupied careers requiring critical thinking, creativity, and very close attention to detail. This process was very time-consuming, understandably, and the results were based on the skill and experience of the writer or editor. Recently, artificial intelligence has begun to alter how content writing and editing are handled. As AI continues to improve, the role of aspiring writers and editors like myself will inevitably change. So to gather more insight on how AI is being applied to my field of study, the journalism minor in me decided to interview some English professors and students to gather their thoughts on this relevant topic. So let's go take a look at what they have to say.
I do think right now we're still very much struggling with how to incorporate AI within English as a field. We're still trying to learn its full capabilities and what it can do and how we can use that for good. I think right now we've been using it within the classroom for like topic brainstorming, ideas for research projects, things like that. I encourage students to use the in style of prompts to think about maybe how other writers might, like writers that they admire, might write something, and then think about how they could emulate that style. So I think that we're still very much thinking about like how to creatively use AI. Especially in ways like I'm interested in how students with like different learning styles can incorporate AI in order to like improve their writing or feel less anxious about writing. I like that giving AI certain prompts can get rid of like the white blank page.
I often teach the writing 116 and 118 classes, and so we've been trying to, as a faculty, determine what's the best way to accept that AI is something that students will use, but also to know what are the parameters that are okay for students to use as a tool, and then when it crosses over into maybe students not doing their own work.
Using the work of others or bias within the algorithms itself that generate new, I wouldn't say it's new, but different writing, right? Or different images. So those are some of my like concerns or challenges that we're having as we work with AI.
Intellectual property, right? And what makes a work yours or not. And that's an interesting question that we're going to have to kind of negotiate as a culture. I already feel kind of like the way that I am accustomed to teaching about plagiarism, for example, is probably going to become quickly outmoded. We need to have some cultural discussions about that, right? About what makes a work authentically yours, that you can claim it. That's a big one, and I think that might be that's going to be a big one for folks who do anything with language or much less literature. How important can a creative work be if it was largely generated by AI, right?
As teachers, as a future teacher, it's hard for me to be like, am I going to be able to depend on those programs that are there to help me keep students accountable? So I'm worried about having to develop that sense of, when I read a student's paper, is this AI or is this not? Is this my student's actual work? Or if it's like paragraphs 1 through 2 are their work, but then paragraph 3 is definitely AI. I'm gonna have to teach myself to be able to recognize that. And then where am I going to go from there? How am I going to discipline that student? What rule am I going to set in place for using AI? So that's just a lot of the thoughts that I'm thinking of as a English education major.
I don't know. I feel a little like I'm maybe the like hopeless fool who in the future they'll look back and laugh, but it's like some part of me really hopes that there's something essential about writing and reading and all of those things that humans do that can't be replicated by technology, that hopefully there will still always just be something special. But I don't know, that could just be a foolish answer.
No, I don't think so. Do I think it ever will? Maybe. I don't know. I think we're quite a ways off from that, just based on where it is right now. There is a video called Everything's a Remix that you may want to check out for your project, but the very last section of that's part 4. It talks about AI and creativity, and the author argues there that it probably will never reach like human creativity. I don't know if that's true. I think it might, but I still think we're like quite a ways off from that. I feel like sometimes it can be creative, but if it is creative, I think that's because of it's the human creating the prompt that makes it creative. Does that make sense? Like, I think AI writing that's good writing, or AI art that's good art, is still because of the human behind it, who's like generating the prompt in the unique way that's creating the unique piece of writing.
I can say that I've certainly heard from students who are English majors about the way AI is impacting their careers. I know I have a former student who works in social media marketing, which has definitely been an area where folks with English degrees have gone to in recent years. And she flat out told me that she thinks that in the near future, a company like hers won't have someone in a role like her, because AI can't do as good of a job as she can, but it can do a good enough job. So I think that in some circumstances like that, there may be some jobs that are just simply lost to AI, but then of course others might be created in other places, right? I think also the fact that AI lies a lot, that AI, these kinds of things suggest to me anyway that there will be a lot of room for fact checkers and people in more kind of editorial roles, even if AI is doing for drafting whatever. There's going to be a need for humans to come in and check. Another example that I think is interesting that I read about recently is actually in creative writing, that there, a lot of literary magazines are like nonprofit, low budget, run by unpaid volunteers, and there are some literary magazines that have had to pause submissions because they've been flooded with submissions, like AI generated submissions basically. So that seems like something that the field has to deal with, has to figure out what it thinks about that.
Another thing that I think a lot about is how I want my own students to use it in the future. There are lots of AI programs to counteract AI writing, and it's very interesting to research the evolution of those, because they're still in the very baby stages of it, and these AI programs that are meant to detect AI oftentimes will misdetect AI. They'll say that a paper that is entirely 100% AI is 100% human or 80% human, and something that is 100% human, they might be like, well, that's AI. And so there's inaccuracies there as well.
I think if nothing else, I think it's interesting that the computer systems, or however AI works, can figure out through looking at lots of examples how to create its own form of the language. And maybe there's something potentially there that teachers and educators could harness, because English is very difficult as a language. It doesn't have a ton of rules. And so those errors that like AI makes when it tries to replicate English could be useful in showing like, oh, here's a pretty common mistake that happens when we're trying to use English as a second or third or just not first language. But I think the problem is when we just stop at just like, AI is bad or AI is good. If it can be a conversation, but that's complicated.
Again, I like the potential for brainstorming. I like the ideas of maybe using AI for like translanguaging or code meshing or remixing languages in cool and different ways, to teach English differently. So I think it has potential in that way, like bringing in like different cultures and like the way we speak and like incorporating those. I think that has a lot of potential in the classroom. That could be cool. I also think it could have potential for, I have some students who will use it to, like, they will write their own thoughts down in like bullet points, and then they will have AI like reorganize those thoughts. So I think that could be like a cool potential use in the classroom of like getting your thoughts down, but then thinking about how you could reorganize those in a different way.
As a biology major looking to do research in the future, I think AI will help predict, interpret, and analyzing data much faster and more accurately than a human can.
For me personally, I have always been fairly staunchly anti-AI, especially this higher, more quickly evolving AI. Of course, AI has been around for a really long time, especially with like grammar checking tools or specific search engines, things like that. But I think this more advanced, like ChatGPT and these writing AIs, as somebody who's always found the creativity and the emotional outlet of writing very therapeutic, and I've loved to see myself slowly and over time grow as a writer. I think that the use of ChatGPT in writing, especially for it to entirely write something from start to finish, it's just something that I personally disagree with, and it's really hard for me to get behind.
I'll say that I have a lot of gut reactions to this, which are that it seems really bad. Like I imagine what it would have been like if I was a graduate student writing a dissertation now, that it would have been impossible to resist the temptation of using AI. And that probably they shouldn't resist the temptation because everybody else is doing it, it's just going to be expected, but that seems challenging. It just seems really challenging, and I feel super conflicted about it myself. I also kind of feel like I have this I have kind of a chip on my shoulder about AI because I feel like it has the potential to hijack what you think about like all kinds of things. You just have to kind of insert it into the conversation about everything. Like I don't want to have to teach AI instead of before I teach writing every time I teach writing, you know what I mean? But that feels kind of like hard to get away from right now. Like anytime you have a conversation about anything, well, what's AI going to do to it? And I kind of resent AI for taking over my own thought process like that.
So I think it has potential as a tool. I'm skeptical of it like writing all the things for us. And I'm hesitant in the ways that it can like copy or plagiarize other people's work. And also it's still pretty bad at like incorrectly citing works. So those are my concerns. But yeah, I'm still excited to learn about it. I think it's kind of a fun thing to learn about and incorporate in the classroom, with the caveat that I don't think that AI can replicate human creativity, or at least not yet.